What's up, friends? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. We're going to go over a Packers stock report and buy or sell exercise in just a moment. But before we get there, we did have a little bit of Packers news from Tuesday. Packers picked up a new linebacker, and I really like this move. Linebacker Eric Wilson signed off of the Saints practice squad. You may remember him as a starting linebacker with the Minnesota Vikings. This is a special team signing, to say the least, and I just love that Brian Gutekunst and company are really hyper-focused on this special teams unit and adding players that can be absolute studs for that unit. We've seen it pay off so far with guys like Rudy Ford, Keyshawn Nixon. I know Isaiah McDuffie was already on the roster, but he's become a core player for this group. And then, Dallin Leavitt was another one. So they've gone out and they have found guys that are core special teamers. And yeah, they happen to have another position that they play as well. In fact, Rudy Ford, we saw, had a really nice game at safety this past week, and he filled in adequately in that role. But his job is as a gunner or as a flyer, like they like to call it, on special teams or defense. I don't care their terminology. I just want to see good special teams. And we've seen a much better job in that special teams unit. But I think it's fair also to sort of understand that with Chris Barnes out, linebackers, tight ends, in safeties, those type of players are always going to make up the core of your special teams group, right? Those are like the size, speed, athleticism, can tackle, can block, can do a little bit of everything. You always want a plethora of, athletic safeties, linebackers, tight ends that can really be the core of your special teams. When Chris Barnes goes down, now all of a sudden Isaiah McDuffie, really your only backup linebacker, and you just don't have that next guy to also be able to help on special teams. I think Eric Wilson, they had the open roster spot because of Caleb Jones's illness, and we'll see what happens with that. I don't know what kind of illness he has that's keeping him out. I know he was, I think on the sidelines he was spotted, so I don't think it's anything like super contagious, but either way, they had the spot, and I love the fact that they fill it with a special team star. And you might say, hey, all right, what does that mean, special team star? Well, Eric Wilson in 2017 with the Vikings, and kudos to Zach Cruz for putting this out on Twitter, per Pro Football Focus, 90.2 special teams rating in 2017, the third best special teams rating in the entire NFL. In 2018 and in 2019, had grades of 78.9 and 77.5, very good grades. And then in 2020, a 90.0 grade, best for ninth best special teams performer in all of the NFL. So we're not just talking about, some run-of-the-mill guy that could be or should be good at. This is a legit big-time special teams player. Now, besides that, he also has had, 1,000+ snaps on defense just in 2020 with the Vikings, was a core starter for them, had an up and down season, had almost a handful of sacks, made some plays, but, up and down overall. He moves on, he goes to Philadelphia and has kind of a disastrous stint with Philadelphia last year. Didn't perform well on defense, didn't perform up to his standards on special teams. Gets released, goes to Houston midway through the season, and then, sort of had a little bit of a bounce back. Didn't play many snaps on defense, but played better when he was in there. And then on special teams, again, not up to his expectations, but played above average on special teams as well. So I think the thing that's nice with him coming to Green Bay at this point is that there is no illusion of him playing defensive snaps at this point. And again, if he gets in, he has the experience in this league to do it, like we saw with Rudy Ford this past week. But his job will be special teams. He is going to be a core special teamer, game in and game out. He'll tag team with Isaiah McDuffie at linebacker as their core special teams from that linebacker unit. And he should be able to, be ultra focused on just that. And if he gets in, he can kind of, just lean on his experience in this league. Nobody's expecting him to come in and play this massive role. But it should be noted that guy was a freak athlete coming out as well. Undrafted free agent, exactly the type of player that Brian Gutekunst has loved picking up, ultra athletic. But I think that the difference here and the massive change this year is that they're not just looking to fill guys at the back. This would have been decades of Ted Thompson and probably even early Brian Gutekunst, that when you've got an open spot there, that's going to be some undrafted free agent who's never played special teams that you're hoping to develop over the course of time into a offensive or defensive player. And listen, Yosh Nijman is a player that they've done that with great success. He is now a starting caliber offensive tackle for them, and they use the back of the roster to fill that type of spot. Did Yosh help on special teams? No, not even close. He was basically a redshirt guy for 2-3 seasons, and then he got his opportunity, made the most of it. So there's advantages and disadvantages to this, right? They don't have those spots. Dallin Levitt, Rudy Ford, and guys like Eric Wilson. These are spots that would normally have gone to rookie type players to develop them long term. Green Bay's losing out on some of that developmental potential. But I think with the fact that they have a 16-man practice squad to develop some younger players, I think they go about doing it that way. And in the meantime, they can actually put out a functioning special teams group. And I just love the fact that they brought in some core special teams guys, but now they get another one. Corey Ballentine was a guy they added to the practice squad last week that has a ton of special teams experience. This is no longer a tertiary thought of we're going to worry about offense and defense. And if we've got a couple spare moments or a couple, spare dollars to spend on special teams, great. But we're going to focus on it's not that anymore. Rich Bisaccia has changed this culture. The team has changed its culture. And this is a team that is focused on being better at special teams. And I do believe it is going to continue to pay dividends. So really like this signing, potential special teams ace with some linebacker flexibility as well. Perfect fit for the back of the roster. And I would expect him to be active and playing special teams this week against the New York Giants. All right, let's get into the crux of our topic for today, and that is buy or sell, stock report, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to go through 10 different topics in sort of rapid fire, motion here, and just kind of go through each of these and say whether I'm buying it or selling it. So the first one, buy or sell Elton Jenkins as a right tackle or offensive tackle. And I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'll answer it eventually, but I'm going to cheat a little bit and say this one to me is still incomplete or too early to tell. And I fully get wanting to play him a little bit more at right tackle to see if he can settle down and really own that position long term, because I think that's what we all expected, right? I don't know that there was anyone that's like, whoa, Elton can't play right tackle. I think everyone was basically expecting, once everyone's healthy, Bakhtiari left tackle, Jenkins right tackle, Myers center, Runyon left guard, and then they'll figure out either Newman or Tom or Hansen or somebody at right guard that they can fill in eventually at that spot. I think that was always sort of the expectation. But a couple things happened. Yosh Nijman became one of their 5 best offensive linemen. If you want to talk Nijman, Hansen, Royce Newman, Zach Tom, etc., the best of that group right now, and maybe even developmentally going forward, is Yosh Nijman. So that is the first step in this. The second is that we all assumed, set it and forget it, Elton Jenkins, right tackle, don't have to worry about that anymore. And that hasn't happened. He's had 2 bad games, I would argue, and 1, game. I think that's a scientific term. So that's where we're at. And I think the other thought here is that if you move Elton back inside, does he become, a Pro Bowl caliber guard again? Because if so, that seems pretty huge. And they need another guard because Royce Newman, Jake Hansen, and Zach Tom seemingly are not ready to play full time yet. So I think there's a lot of questions here. If the question is primarily, is Elton, a long-term right tackle? Am I buying Elton Jenkins at tackle? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say as of right now, I am selling. I would move him back inside and try to get Yosh some playing time at right tackle. And I think even if you want to then put Elton at left guard long-term, Runyon at right guard long-term, and then at right tackle, put Yosh there and move Zach Tom to right tackle, because right guard and left guard are blocked now. Center's blocked, left tackle probably blocked. Move Tom to right tackle and let him compete with Yosh moving forward. And I think you've got a potential, you just need one of those guys to succeed long-term. So I'm going to sell and say I like Elton Jenkins as a guard and not as a tackle. All right, Amari Rogers, buy or sell as the returner for the Green Bay Packers. You already know my answer, but I'm going to say it anyway. I am selling hard right now on Amari Rogers. And listen, I was the first one this offseason to say, hey, let's give Amari Rogers a little bit more time. Listen, I go back to the tape at Clemson. I know this was never, you have to know what you're getting when you draft a player, right? This was never a player that had the explosive, first step, like crazy speed, crazy ability to make people miss or like anything like that. That was not a trait in his game. But at the highest of levels at college at Clemson, it did not matter. He consistently made plays, made people miss, and ran through players, played a physical brand of football, was a really good blocker, especially for his size. Like, it just seemed like such an easy fit, even though he didn't have that top gear. It felt like, hey, I've seen it. He didn't have that top gear in college, and he consistently made it work. Like, of all, evaluators, Brian Gutekunst clearly he loves athleticism, and he wants to put as many high-end athletes on this roster as possible. So the fact that the guy who loves athletic traits more than anyone saw Amari and said, he's not fast enough for my standards. He's not agile enough. He's not explosive enough. He's not tall enough for my standards. And I still want to draft him. And not only draft him, move up in the draft to draft him. And even to say that they considered him over Josh Myers in the second round to draft him tells you how good his tape was and how impressive he was in college. Because Brian Gutekunst threw all of his normal evaluations and metrics out the window to draft this guy. And I loved the pick at the time. I think almost everyone really enjoyed the pick at the time, and it just hasn't turned out. And even this offseason, I wanted to give him a second chance. He didn't get a ton of chances last year, certainly as a wide receiver. And as a returner, he had some rookie mistakes, and you're thinking, all right, maybe he gets an opportunity in year 2 and can kind of learn from what his mistakes were a season ago. And to some extent, I think he has. There's the reports that he's a half a step quicker. Okay, maybe. I don't see it. But he has certainly not made the same mental mistakes. He did have one muff, and he almost muffed the punt at the end of that game against New England, or had at least an awkward bounce that he had to sort of field at the last second. But overall, I do think his decision-making has improved a little bit. But the point being is that it doesn't matter. There's no explosiveness there. He can't make people, he can't get by people. He can't erase an angle. And I think the blocking's been good enough where if you have a dynamic returner back there, you're going to get some explosives out of that. And I just don't see that right now with Amari. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he proves everyone wrong. I hope he goes out and kills it. But right now, I just don't see it with Amari. And I think they have to start looking in different directions as far as returner goes. Number 3, Aaron Rodgers regression. Am I buying or selling his regression? So I guess technically I am buying because I think he is regressing from his back-to-back MVP seasons. I am selling in the fact that it's of anything of note. Yeah, he started off slow. No question about it. These 4 games have been from Aaron Rodgers standards, a very disappointing start to the season. No two ways about it. These 4 games, he's averaging about negative 0.3 so far. And if you go back to 2020, he was averaging almost +2 per game. And last year was like +1.3 per game. And this, in my grades, and this year, negative 0.3. Like, it's just not even remotely close. Like, he is well underperforming for where he was the last 2 seasons. So I'm buying the fact that there is some regression. And I think that is going to be the case. I think part of that is some new wide receivers, no Devontae Adams, getting Elton Jenkins, David Bakhtiari reacclimated on the offensive line. I think all of that's playing a part. But I think by the end of the season, he's going to be playing at an extremely high level. We saw in the second half of this last game him play at a very, very high level. He's going to be just fine. I don't think he's going to be an MVP candidate probably at the end of the year, but he is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he will bounce back from this slow start. I have no question about that whatsoever. Am I buying or selling the special teams improvement and whether or not it can continue? I am buying the special teams. And we just talked about it, right? This is a team that is focused on special teams. Eric Wilson's a great example of that. This is not something they would have done in the past. Add another core special teams player when they had an open spot like that. They did it this time. They are continuing to add pieces to make this special teams very good. They still need a returner. We just talked about that. But I'm very bullish on what I think the special teams can become overall because they have the aces on the special teams unit, players that are bought in, who believe in special teams, who care about special teams, who have played special teams at a high level, and not just like one. Like, the Packers were like jumping for joy when they had like a Jarrett Bush, and there's like their one guy who could actually like be decent on special teams. They've got 4 guys that are probably better than Jarrett Bush at special teams on this roster right now. Think about that for a second. And that overall is very exciting. So I am buying the special teams improvement. Romeo Doubs stock, I don't even know how to put it other than that. Would I buy or sell? I am aggressively buying Romeo Doubs stock right now. I've said it. I'll say it again. There are going to be some hiccups. There's going to be a learning curve. There are going to be some MVS-esque moments where there's drops in the end zone. There's wrong routes run. There's going to be some frustration from Aaron Rodgers at times. All of that is going to be true. And it just doesn't matter because the kid is a stud at wide receiver and he's just going to get better. And look out, rest of the NFL, when Doubs puts it all together, because he is doing special things on the football field as a rookie. And I don't even think fully understands exactly what he's capable of yet. He will. And when he does, he's going to be a special player. Now, whether that amounts to the next Devontae, Jordy, Jennings, who knows? Whether that's the next James Jones or Randall Cobb, who knows? But I think he's going to be a darn good wide receiver. I think he has a legitimate chance to be a true number one in this league. And I think that has an opportunity to happen sooner rather than later. I am buying on Romeo Doubs. Rashan Gary's rise, again, I don't know exactly how you want to put this here, of like, to an all-pro level player, whatever the case may be, I'm buying. He's so freaking good. He is so intense. He's so physical. He's just becoming an unstoppable edge rusher. The only thing that stops him, quite frankly, at times is himself. He wants to be a speed rusher. And I'm almost worried to some extent because how did he get home this past week against the Patriots? He got home with speed on 2 huge sacks. And to some extent, I'm excited about that because usually he has struggled with winning with speed. And he's had to win with power and converting speed to power. The crazy thing is he's so good at converting speed to power and bull rushing and getting guys pushed backwards because he's so fast and so strong that when he did anything else, it was almost disappointing. I'm semi-encouraged that he was actually able to win on a couple of snaps with just a pure speed rush. And I do think he's putting together more of a pass rush plan. Before he won as a freak athlete. Now he's winning as a freak athlete with an insane motor and a pass rush plan. And when you've got all 3 of those things, look the heck out. And he is a very fun player to watch right now. We could get some Andrew Thomas, Rashan Gary this week, which is 2 just massive heavyweights doing battle. That should be so fun. But I am buying on Rashan Gary's rise. How about Devondre Campbell's decline? I am going to sell. I don't think Devondre Campbell's declining. I don't think that this was a poor contract. I don't think he's going to become all of a sudden a bad player. I don't think the Cinderella slipper is off. I think Devondre Campbell's still a good player. Yes, he had 4 missed tackles all of last year. He's got 6 already this year. Yes, he hasn't made some of the plays that we became so accustomed to seeing him make a season ago. We are early in the season. We are 4 weeks in. I think this defense just needs to do a better job of playing team defense. I think if we see guys set the edge better, funnel things inside, all of a sudden Devondre and Quay are going to be in better positions to make plays. I think if blocks are eaten up a little bit better up front, Quay and Campbell are going to be able to fly to the football sideline to sideline and make those plays, make those tackles. I think, players playing a little bit out of themselves and trying to do a bit too much has caused a bit of chaos. I think that's caused issues for Quay and Campbell. And I think if things can be kept a little bit more clean, we're going to see those guys make more plays. Campbell has the ability to shed blocks. He'll get better as the season goes along. I am selling any sort of Devondre Campbell decline. Josh Myers is a long-term center. I am buying, but I do have some concerns with his inconsistencies. Still hasn't played a full season. I love the athletic profile. When he is good, he is really good. But when he's bad, it looks really bad. So the inconsistencies remain. I think they'll get that ironed out. I think the good is going to win out, and he's going to come to the light and be a consistent player. It's close. It is really, really close. And like I said, when you see some of the good stuff he does on tape, it is like, ooh, this is like Pro Bowl good stuff. But there's too much bad still, and that needs to get cleaned up. I think it will. I am buying Josh Myers as a long-term center, but maybe buying cautiously. Maybe not a ton of stock, just a little bit, just dabbling a little bit in some Josh Myers stock. Robert Tonyan is number 1 tight end. I am selling, and for anyone that knows me, I was the first. I was a bigger Robert Tonyan stan from the moment I first saw him than his family, than his friends, than anyone else. There was no bigger Robert Tonyan stan. And I still think he can be functional within this offense. I think we saw a great play from him and what he's still capable of doing this last week over the center of the field. But his route separation and man coverage has been really, really poor. He's not separating against linebackers, safeties, corners, doesn't matter. It's just not there right now. And he can't do anything after the catch. I'm hoping that as the season goes along and he feels more comfortable from his ACL, we may see a little bit of an extra gear from Tonyan. But as of right now, it's not there. And as much of the talk is like Green Bay doesn't have enough wide receivers, I like their wide receivers. I like their running backs. Their offensive line has solutions if they can get better. Tight end is my concern. I am selling Bob Tonyan as tight end 1. It's not to say he can't be functional, but they need a little bit more of a playmaker at that position. And then last but not least, buy or sell. Packers win 13 or more wins again this season under Matt LaFleur. I am selling. I think the travel in this schedule coming up is concerning. I think they're going to be a little bit beat up. I think they've got some tough games on the schedule. I know the Rams are beat up right now, but trust me, they'll probably find a way to be extremely healthy by the time they play the Packers. I think Dallas is going to be a tough game, assuming Dak Prescott's back by that point. And I think Philly's going to be a tough game. Minnesota's going to be another tough game. Like, they've got Buffalo on the road, a massively tough game. They've got some tough games on the schedule. I think there's going to be a few more losses here than we're accustomed to. I think that's okay. And I think they'll ultimately, clearly be a playoff team. And as I've said all along, I just want to see them playing their best football come January and February. That is going to do it for me today. If you missed Pack-A-Day Live yesterday, fantastic episode with Matt Schneidman and Nicole Menner. Had a great moment where Matt got to witness his favorite New York Yankees slugger, Aaron Judge, hit the home run live while we were on stream. So that was a fun moment. But check it out. It was a great Packers conversation with Nicole and Matt. So that is up on YouTube if you have not had the chance to check it out yet. It's also on the audio version of the podcast if you'd rather check it out there. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. Would greatly appreciate that. We are so close to 10K followers or subscribers, so make sure to do that sooner rather than later. Just do it right now. I'd appreciate that. I will be right back here tomorrow with an all-new episode, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.